Solidarity greetings, everyone. We'll get started in a couple minutes as people are in the waiting room joining, and we want to make sure that everybody's on before we start. So give us a minute or two. We appreciate your patience. One more minute, we'll start. Okay, let's get started. Greetings all, and in the spirit of international working class solidarity, welcome to this important webinar hosted by the National Labor Network for Ceasefire. Today, we're honored to host a conversation with Palestinian union leaders and workers to hear directly from them about the impact of the war in Gaza and how it's affecting workers, and also to address the difficult road ahead. My name is Mark Dimmenstein, president of the American Postal Workers Union. Our union was proud to be among the 7 national unions, which in February of this year formed the National Labor Network for Ceasefire. Today, our network counts over 200 local and national unions in every sector across the United States, amplifying the voice of organized workers in our calls for a ceasefire in Gaza. In addition to the unions in our network, unions representing the vast majority of organized workers in the United States are now on record in support of a ceasefire. You can read more about the National Labor Network for Ceasefire at our website, laborforceasefire.org. We've worked to educate our members and to pressure the Congress and the Biden administration to use the power of the United States government, the main funder of the Israeli military, to secure the demands for a ceasefire. In February, we were pleased to host a webinar with labor leaders here in the United States, some members of Congress, and a historian who educated our members on the origins of the conflict in the region and what the current war means for the Palestinian people. Today, we are hearing directly from our Palestinian comrades, trade union leaders in both the West Bank and in Gaza. We will share how the war is affecting their union members and how international solidarity can help bring about the peace necessary for Palestinian workers to rebuild and lead lives of dignity and security that every worker, everywhere in the world, deserves. Please note, one brother from Palestine will be speaking to us in his native Arabic. We have arranged for simultaneous interpretation. So we're asking all of you to click the interpretation button on the menu of your screen and select English. Depending on the version of Zoom you're using, this may look like a globe, or you may need to first click the 3 horizontal dots at the bottom right of your screen to pull up more options, and then click interpretation from there. This is important for everybody to do so that you don't hear 2 languages at the same time. We're here today because Israel's relentless war in Gaza has continued, now reaching a death toll of over 38,000, the majority children. with many thousands more presumed dead, buried under the rubble, or dying from disease and starvation inflicted by the Israeli government. Nearly everyone in walled-off Gaza has been displaced. Homes, hospitals, schools, mosques, water systems, and vital infrastructure being destroyed by Israeli bombs. We'll be hearing from a panel of 3 trade union leaders in Palestine, and a sister with workers in Palestine, an organization in the UK, organizing to amplify the call of Palestinian unions to end weapons shipments to Israel. So it is indeed an honor for me to introduce our panelists. Dr. Salama Abu Zawaiter is president of the General Union of Health Services Workers in Gaza and a member of the General Secretariat of the Palestinian General Federation of Trade Unions, PGFTU. Lalea Mayas, president of the Transport Workers Union in Palestine and secretary of the General Federation of Palestinian Trade Unions, PGFTU, Ramallah and Albira branch. And Saruka Saad, journalist and a member of the General Secretariat of the PJS. I'm sorry, I have one more person to introduce, and here it is right here. And of course, Rafif Ziadat, an organizer with workers in Palestine and a member of UCU, the University and College Union in the UK. Our first speaker will have to join us from video because Dr. Zawaiter is in Gaza, and it is impossible due to his displacement and other factors to join us in person. So can we begin the video, please?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
And then
الزملاء الأعزاء في النقابات العمالية والمهنية في الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية، إلى كل الأصدقاء والمناصرين والداعمين لحق شعبنا في النضال والدفاع عن القضية الفلسطينية ومناصرته في قضيته حقه العادل في إقامة دولته الفلسطينية وإنهاء آخر احتلال في العالم. أخاطبكم من مخيمات النزوح، أخاطبكم من خيمة في مخيم خان يونس بعد نزوح للمرة الرابعة من مكان إلى مكان في غزة. معظم الأماكن التي يتم الانتقال منها غير آمنة، وحتى اللحظة يتعرض شعبنا إلى إبادة جماعية واستهداف لكل مقومات الحياة وتدمير كامل للبنية التحتية. أذكركم بهذه الحرب المستمرة والشرسة من الاحتلال الإسرائيلي ضد كل مكونات المجتمع الفلسطيني، فقد بلغت أعداد الشهداء لأكثر من 36 ألف شهيد، وأكثر من 11 ألف مفقود تحت الركام وتحت المنازل المدمرة، وأكثر من 100 ألف مصاب. يعجز المؤسسات الصحية عن تقديم الرعاية الصحية الكاملة والمناسبة بعد انهيار المنظومة الصحية والنظام الصحي في قطاع غزة. أيضا أذكركم بأن معظم سكان غزة اللي بيزيد عددهم عن 2,500,000 نازحين ما بين خيم ومراكز إيواء للنازحين في ظروف حياتية صعبة جدا لا ترقى للمستوى الآدمي أو لحياة آدمية، ويعاني الأطفال الأمراض والأوبئة، وتعاني النساء من أدنى مقدمات الحياة التي تحتاجها النساء أو يحتاجها أي إنسان فلسطيني. أود أن أشير هنا أن غزة أصبحت لا يوجد فيها أي مكان آمن ما بعد استهداف رفح وإخلاء رفح، واليوم تقريبا معظم سكان رفح تم إخلاءهم من مناطقهم نظرا للاستهداف المباشر لمعظم المناطق. وصلت أخيرا إلى غرب رفح هذا الاستهداف، ويتم نقل الناس في أماكن إيوائية. يعني للملاحظة معظم الناس الذين يخرجون إلى مراكز الإيواء يخرجون إلى أماكن لم يكن ترتيب فيها لاستقبالهم. يكاد الإنسان ينقل بعض الحاجات الأساسية عبر وسائل النقل البدائية، وبينزل في الشارع، بينزل في الشارع لحين يعني إنشاء خيمة أو إنشاء أي مركز للنزوح. هذه القضايا يعني بيعاني منها بشكل لحظي أهالي قطاع غزة، بالإضافة للاستهداف المباشر للمؤسسات الصحية وخروج معظمها عن الخدمة، واستهداف الأطقم الطبية، واستهداف كل المؤسسات الاجتماعية التي تقدم خدمات، بالإضافة إلى تدمير المؤسسات التعليمية والبنية التحتية التي يترتب على ذلك الكثير من المعاناة النفسية والاجتماعية والصحية لأهالي قطاع غزة، وترتب على ذلك أزمات، وترتب على ذلك انهيار للثقافة، انهيار للقيم، مشاكل يعني تكاد أن تكون يعني مدمرة لكل مكونات المجتمع الفلسطيني. تداعيات الحرب على كل مكونات المجتمع الفلسطيني تداعيات اقتصادية واجتماعية ونفسية وثقافية يدفع ثمنها المدنيين من أهالي قطاع غزة، وبالتالي مطلوب الآن التدخل من كل الأصدقاء. وهنا أتوجه باسمي كرئيس نقابة العاملين في الخدمات الصحية وكقيادي في الاتحاد العام لنقابات عمال فلسطين لكل الزملاء والأصدقاء في المؤسسات النقابية والدولية، وخاصة النقابات العمالية والمهنية في الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية، بمطالبة للتدخل للضغط على الاحتلال لإنهاء الحرب والعدوان على قطاع غزة ووقف هذا الشلال من الدماء. الضغط على الحكومة الأمريكية للضغط على حكومة الاحتلال بوقف هذا العدوان وهذه الإبادة الجماعية وهذا الاستهداف للمدنيين والأطفال والنساء. ومعظم شهدائنا ومعظم مصابين هم من الأطفال والنساء والشيوخ الكبار في السن. أيضا مطلوب أن نتعاون ونتحد في فرض آليات لفرض حظر على الأسلحة التي توجه للاحتلال، ويعني وتشكيل قوة ضغط لوقف هذه الأسلحة التي تدمر المدنيين وتدمر المجتمع الفلسطيني، يعني لوقف هذه المجازر وهذه المذابح وهذه الحرب الإبادية، لإمكانية يعني دعم شعبنا في استنهاض نفسه من جديد وإعادة يعني ما دمروا يعني دمرته هذه الحرب. أيضا مطلوب أن نتعاون لحشد موقف دولي وإرسال وفود لزيارة قطاع غزة لرصد كل الانتهاكات التي قام بها الاحتلال الإسرائيلي، وإعادة يعني ومحاولة إعادة الاعتبار لمن بقي على الحياة، يعني إعادة الحياة إلى طبيعتها بعد أن فقد المجتمع الفلسطيني في قطاع غزة إمكانية أن يكون هناك حياة وأمل. انعدم الأمل أمام مجتمعنا الفلسطيني في ظل هذا الاستهداف. يعني اليوم يعاني الناس من كثير من المشاكل التي تحتاج لوقفة من الشرفاء، لوقفة من المناصري الإنسانية، لوقفة من مناصري العدالة، لدعم شعبنا في حقه في حياة كريمة، لدعم شعبنا في حقه العادل في إقامة دولة الفلسطينية المستقلة، لدعم شعبنا في تقديم يعني أكسجين جديد لإنعاش هذا المجتمع الذي يتعرض للإبادة بشكل يومي. أنا أملي باسم كل شعب الفلسطيني، أملي باسم أهل قطاع غزة أن نتعاون سويا لوقف هذا العدوان، لوقف هذه الحرب، وإعادة يعني الاعتبار للمجتمع ليستطيع مجتمع أن يعيش حياة كريمة ويوفر أدنى متطلبات الحياة، سواء في الجانب الصحي أو على الجانب الإغاثي أو الجانب المساعدات أو حتى حقه في التعليم وحقه في أن يكون يعيش حياته مثله مثل أي مجتمع في العالم. شكرا لكم، وتمنياتي دائما أن نشكل قوة مع بعض لوقف كل الانتهاكات بحق الإنسانية في هذا العالم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Well, thank you, Dr. Zawader, joining us with that powerful message under such difficult and tragic circumstances. Next, I want to turn to Sister Sharouk Assad, a journalist and a leader in her view. We just heard about the devastating conditions facing healthcare workers, Sister Sharouk, and all the people in Gaza. Can you tell us about the challenges facing journalists in this moment and how your union is advocating for an end to the war and for the safety and the well-being of Palestinian journalists?
First, I want to thank you all for organizing this webinar or panel. It's highly needed in this hard and tragic circumstances. And it gives us hope. Again, I always say this, that our voices and our colleagues' voices is being heard. I came now to you after a long day trying to reach to Jenin to film and do report. I have to tell you that usually it takes not more than hour and a half, 2 hours. It took me 3 hours going and nearly 3 hours and a half going back. It was very frightening and dangerous, and I got stopped at the Israeli checkpoints, though I have my TV stickers all over, my life vest jacket, my equipment. Armed settlers were around us all the time. It was really very hard to do our job. The sad thing is that now I see, and all my colleagues here in West Bank, we see those attacks on us as if they are nothing comparing to what our colleagues are facing in Gaza. Yesterday, we put our report in the syndicate, PGS, and we lost 151 journalists the last 9 months. So many are injured without their arms or legs, or now they are displaced for the maybe 8th time. Yesterday, I was trying, because usually I send messages to my colleagues due to lack of internet, lack of electricity connection, which also make it very hard for them to deliver their stories, their videos that they film. But also I like to check on them. And usually after a couple of days, sometimes a week, till I receive message back, and I keep on asking, are they alive or are they dead? Are they okay? And yesterday they were telling me that because they moved my colleagues, some of them who turned back the message, they were displaced from North Gaza to Deir el-Balah, then to Khan Yunis, then to Rafah, then back again after the invasion of Rafah. They went to Al-Mawasi in Khan Yunis. Also, they were bombed. And now they're trying in Anserat to stay in Serat and El-Brej. They have no water. They walk for an hour and a half to try to get gallon of water, which is not polluted. All of them are sick, have so many bacterial issues and viruses and pollution. They don't find any medicine. All of our other equipments, most of them lost their equipment, camera, editing, mics, due to the Israeli bombing. As I said in our last meeting, Israel bombed 88 now, because it's more of the media offices in Gaza. They have no place to work from as any normal protected journalist, as say international law and human rights. They walk in very hard circumstances. Some even don't have shoes to wear because there's nothing in the market to really wear. One has one shoe, they try to wear it. Some colleagues, when they have the missions, some even walk with their barefoot. A colleague is injured due to the shelling, was telling me that Israel refused to let him out of Gaza to get treated, and maybe now, because there's lack of medicine and medication, and the issue of devastation or bombing of 80% of the hospitals, now they are bombed. He may really face that his leg will be cut at the end without even any anesthesia. He's only 24 years old. It's hard for them to even, they go for like an hour to try to find a network or internet. They say they have so many videos they cannot deliver for their media organizations. They are terrified. They lost all of them, all of our colleagues lost family or friends or colleagues. We have nearly 1,600 displaced. We have only 90 to 100 colleagues who managed to stay in North Gaza. North Gaza is facing starvation, literally starvation. Beside the internet problem, beside the electricity, beside the targeting, the lack of protection, they are also under kind of cut between the other areas. They cannot move. It's very dangerous to reach to areas, to cover, to... I'm trying to tell you nearly what they face, but I think without them, really, we would not have known, without those local journalists, while Israel refused to let any journalists inside Gaza. Without them, we really could not have known or knew so many of the massacres that is going on. They are in very hard circumstances, and we're trying to deliver to you and to so many of people what are the challenges and the dangers, what they are facing. No journalist really faced all over the world. This number of our colleagues who are killed, this means like we are losing each week 5 journalists. It's a huge number with the population of Gaza, which is nearly 2 million. This means that maybe in the population of put it in the population of United States, this will be really a huge number of journalists. Also huge number of women, children killed. So I hope I delivered a little bit of what they are facing. And we call that they have to be protected. This is their right. There's right of freedom of speech. We really hope that people will stand with us so they can have this right, and that really people should, or organizations or syndicates or workers should really work together. The best thing we can do this is first deliver their voices. Second, stick to human rights that we all belong to. And also really stop any support, military, money, anything for Israel, because it's killing our colleagues and the children and the women. And I hope we will really see this as an attack on the whole journalism scene, not only the attack on Palestinian journalism scene, attack on workers, on doctors. Doctors, we lost nearly 500 till now. We lost more than 250 teachers till now. Those are all workers, and support is needed, because this is our ethics, and this is our humanity, and this is the international law that we all share. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, sister, for that powerful and moving and compelling presentation that speaks so loudly and clearly to what's happening on the ground. Next, I want to ask Brother Alaa Mayas. The brother is the leader of the Transport Workers Union. But brother, if you could share how the war has affected transport workers and what challenges have your members faced, and how the union is organizing in these most difficult months. And thank you so much for joining us. Alaa.
At the outset, I would like to thank everyone for this webinar, which is very important for us as Palestinians, so we can deliver our message to the whole world about the suffering of Palestinian people over 76 years. This outrageous war on Gaza and in the West Bank, it is very important that we have this channel of communication between us and the Unionists in the US, a great nation, and we hope that this image would be clear and delivered clearly to everyone. My name is Ala Mayasi, the director of the Transport Union in Palestine, and I am head of the BGFTU in Ramallah. I'm not gonna repeat what Dr. Salama and Ms. Shuluk has said. They have talked about the suffering of our people in Gaza and some sectors. I would talk about transportation.
وعمال فلسطين دائما طموحين بانهم يطوروا حالهم يطوروا بلدهم يكون في عندنا قطاعات متقدمة
have always been keen on developing their country and to be up to the international standards. However, unfortunately, we live in very tough times. We've been pushed back 100 years, and the violations that we are subject to. In 1998, we had Gaza airport. It was opened by the US president, but now this airport has been destroyed. It has stopped for 24 years. It worked only it was operational for 2 years only. It is the right of the Palestinian people to have their airport, but the occupation have destroyed it. Here, the suffering of the Palestinians after the peace process, the Israelis have worked on the mining and destroying everything that is part of the Palestinian identity. In Gaza, people drink from seawater. However, in the West Bank, we have allocations of water that are subject to a decision from the Israelis, and they just give us some portion of water. This is a way to impose some pressure on us and on the authority, and the continuous wars and on Gaza and the siege on Gaza, actually. Transportation is destroyed, and there are rarely trucks going through to Gaza, and the trucks are also very old and
2500 مركب صيد
2500 trucks.
هدول اليوم 10,000 عامل فقدوا بعيدا عن فقدوه من أرواح وممتلكات.
There were 10,000 drivers working on these trucks, and now they have lost all the trucks, and that means we have added to unemployment. The fishing sector also is completely destroyed. They can't go fishing. They don't have boats, and we really blame the whole world who claim that they are advocates for human rights and freedom. They can't force Israel to make food get into or wheat or one truck into Gaza. I think with that, all masks of humanity have fallen, and the Palestinians are peace-loving. It is the land of Jesus.
للإنسانية
it's the land of
في أرض الإنسانية أصلا.
Muhammad,
قطاع غزة
Prophet
مدمر.
Muhammad,
أحكي عن
and
الضفة الغربية والمأساة اللي بعيشها شعبنا جراء الحرب الحالية
the
وما
Gaza
قبل الحرب.
Strip
أصلا هناك حصار اقتصادي على الشعب
a
الفلسطيني.
complete
اليوم بنعيش
mess.
في قطاع النقل
There is
بيعمل بوتيرة 40%.
this is the
جراء
word
تقطيع أوصال المدن اللي بيعيشوها اللي فرضها علينا الاحتلال. الاعتداءات
because of the
والمخاطر اللي بيعيشها
occupation. There
النقل.
are
هناك عمال تم الاعتداء عليهم،
a
استشهدوا،
lot of attacks on
تم
the
اعتقالهم. بس ذنبهم الوحيد ان هم
transportation sector.
بيعملوا في مهنة
Many
النقل،
of
بوصلوا
our workers
الناس
have been killed,
لبيوتهم، بوصلوا الناس
and
لأشغالهم،
many
بوصلوا
were
الناس
taken into prison. Their
لأماكن
crime
سكنهم.
is
عمال
because
النقل
they
في
take
فلسطين
people
بيعانوا
from one
معاناة كثير
place to
كبيرة.
another.
قطاع النقل لم يشهد التطوير من سنين طويلة. مش عارفين إحنا
Uh,
كعمال في قطاع
workers in
النقل أو حتى القطاع الحكومي مش عارفين حتى لحظة نحط خطة استراتيجية لها
have
علاقة
been
بقطاعنا،
suffering.
كيف نطوره، كيف نحسنه، كيف نعيش
We
فيه.
can't put a strategy to develop
عمال
our
النقل في
sector.
فلسطين أو في الضفة الغربية
Today,
بيعملوا
workers
أو
in the West
دخلهم
Bank,
تراجع نسبة 70%. يعني اليوم هم
they have
اعتاشوا
lost
بنسبة 30%.
like
وهذا
70%
طبعا
of their
غير الغلاء
income.
اللي
They
موجود
live on only
جراء كمان
30%,
الحصار اللي بيعيشه الشعب
knowing that
الفلسطيني وامتلاك
the
الاحتلال
prices
لكافة
are
المعابر اللي ممكن
soaring up
يتم فيها
because of
تدخين
the war.
البضائع. كمان هناك بيسيطر عليها الاحتلال.
And also in the West Bank, we have the
الضفة
problem
الغربية اللي هي أرض
supplies
67 اللي
that are
معترف
not
فيها العالم
reaching
كله
our
كدولة للشعب
territories
الفلسطيني.
because of
اليوم
the
إحنا بنعيش على مساحة
Israeli
25% أو
constraints.
24%
We
من
live only on 25%
الدولة اللي
of
اعترف لنا فيها العالم كله
the
كدولة
land
فلسطينية
that
على
was
حدود الرابع من
acknowledged
حزيران
by the whole
67
world
وعاصمتها
as
القدس. اليوم
the
بنعيش
state of
على
Palestine.
نسبة
We
24% من
live
هذه الأرض اللي هي أرض دولة
on
فلسطين. كمان هدول ال
24% of the
24%
country
مقطعات
of the
كانتونات
land of Palestine
جراء
that has been
المستوطنات،
shredded
جراء
into cantons, and
الحواجز
because of
الإسرائيلية. اليوم
putting
في 400
settlements here and there in order to cut our villages.
400 وشوي حواجز في كافة
We
مناطق
have
الضفة
like
الغربية. يعني عشان زي
over
ما تفضلت
400
شروق عشان أروح على جنين
checkpoints.
اللي أنا بدي
So as Shuruk
أروح
said,
أوصلها
if
بالساعة
I
اليوم
want to
بقعد
go
3-4
Jenin,
ساعات
the road would
بعيدا
take
عن
me 1
المخاطر
hour,
اللي أنا
but
بعيش
because
فيها
of the checkpoints,
جراء
it would take me like 4 hours.
الحواجز الموجودة أو قطاع
Not to mention
المستوطنين
the
اللي
risks
دائما
and
على
the
الطرق الالتفافية، ما
dangers
يسمى
of
الالتفافية اللي هي
this
موجودة أصلا على أراضي دولة
trip.
فلسطين. بيتم الاعتداء على المركبات بتكسيرهم بالحجارة أو
Many
الاعتداءات على
people would
السائقين.
be subject
فكمان
to attacks
مهنة
from
النقل اليوم
settlers
صفت مهنة كتير خطرة.
when commuting
عمال
in their
النقل
in their
صاروا
vehicles.
يعزفوا عن العمل في هذا القطاع لأنه قطاع حقيقة
So
في
many
مخاطر
people
كتير
have
كبيرة
stopped
جراء الحصار
working
والاعتداءات الإسرائيلية
in the
على هذا
transportation
القطاع.
sector
عمالنا
because
بشكل
of
عام
the
بيعانوا معاناة
risks.
كبيرة بكافة القطاعات. عمال اللي كانوا يعملوا بالداخل بإسرائيل من
All those who used to work in Israel
من 7 أكتوبر لليوم
since
عاطلين عن
7th of
العمل.
October,
هدول كانوا
they are
يدخلوا على الاقتصاد الوطني
jobless.
الفلسطيني $1.3
They
مليار شيكل.
were a
يدعي
source of
الإسرائيلي إنه
1,300,000
أو منعهم من
shekels
الدخول
to
لأماكن عملهم هو
the
موضوع
Palestinian
أمني، ولكن
families.
هو
But
ليس
now
له
all
علاقة
of this
بالموضوع
has
الأمني، هو
stopped.
موضوع اقتصادي بحت للتضييق
It
على
is
الشعب الفلسطيني.
not
حجز
because
أموال
of
الضريبة
security. It is
اللي
a way
بيعتاش
to
منها
have
القطاع العام
some
في الحكومة
extra
كمان
pressure on the
إلها
Palestinian
علاقة
people.
بتدمير الاقتصاد الفلسطيني. اليوم الاقتصاد
They have
الوطني
worked
الفلسطيني بيعمل بوتيرة 30%. لا
relentlessly on
تكفي
destroying the economy of the Palestinians, and
أدنى مقومات الحياة للشعب الفلسطيني.
we don't have the minimal
اليوم إحنا
requirements
بنعيش
for
مأساة
a normal
حقيقية.
life.
إحنا مطلبنا
We
للعالم
are
بأنه
living
يكون
a
في عدالة
catastrophe.
حقيقية
We hope that there
وموقف
would be
واضح تجاه
justice
ممارسات
or a
الاحتلال تجاه
clear
الشعب
position
الفلسطيني.
against the
يعني
Israeli
1000 قرار أممي
practices
من
against the Palestinians.
1947 في 1000
Since
قرار أممي بحق الشعب الفلسطيني
1947, there
ما
is
طبقش منهم قرار
1,000
واحد.
UN
هذا
resolutions,
دليل على
none
انحياز
of which
العالم
have been
للظلم مش أكثر من
forced
هيك،
into effect. Our
للظلم اللي
people have
بتمارسه
been
إسرائيل تجاه
subject
الشعب
to
الفلسطيني.
injustice.
احنا بنتمنى
We
وبنأمل
hope and we
النقابات
really urge
والزملاء في النقابات
our
الأمريكية بأن يكون
colleagues
لهم موقف
in
واضح
the
تجاه
US
كل
trade
ما
unions to have a clear position
يمر
from what is
به
happening
عمال
and
فلسطين.
from
صوتكم
the
كتير مهم
sufferings
بالنسبة
of
لنا
the Palestinian
كفلسطينيين. إحنا
workers,
كفلسطينيين لنا
and
تجربة مع أمريكا
we have
والشعب
an
الأمريكي من
experience
قديم
with
الزمان. يعني إذا
America
بتسمحوا لي بدي
and
أحكي
the
مثال
people
بسيط
of
بس
America. I will give you only an
أوصل
example.
رسالة في قديش ممكن تكون أمريكا والإدارة
And
الأمريكية
the
والشعب
US
الأمريكي
and
له
the US
تأثير
administration and the
في
people of the
القرار
US,
برفع الظلم عن الشعب الفلسطيني.
they are
في
capable of lifting the injustice.
1956
In
كان ايزنهاور رئيس أمريكا، كان في حرب اللي
56
وقعت على مصر في حينه، وكان في
there was a
تدخل
war on
أمريكي
Egypt at that time.
بعد وقف الحرب بالانسحاب الإسرائيلي من سيناء. كانت محتلة
He
سيناء
called
وقطاع غزة
to
إسرائيل.
Israel to withdraw from Sinai
ايزنهاور في
and
حينه
the
بلغ
Gaza
إسرائيل
Strip.
بالانسحاب
Eisenhower
من سيناء ومن غزة،
called
وإلا
Israel
بفرض
to
عليهم
withdraw,
اقتصاد،
or else
يعني
he
بيقطع
would
عنهم
impose
المساعدات الاقتصادية والمالية.
or
إسرائيل في
stop
حينه
the US
انسحبت من سيناء
financial
ورفضت
and
تنسحب
military
من
assistance.
غزة.
They withdrew from Sinai,
الرئيس
but they did
ايزنهاور
not
اتصل على
withdraw
بن-غوريون،
from
وزير
Gaza.
كان في
But
وقتها وزير
Eisenhower called Ben-Gurion.
رئيس وزراء إسرائيل بن-غوريون اتصل عليه
He was the
ايزنهاور،
prime minister
حكى له
of Israel
يعني
then.
بدي أحكيها
Eisenhower
ببساطة
called him
بالعامية.
and
حكى
he
له أنا هلأ بدي
told him
أنام الساعة 8 الصبح
Allah,
بصحى من النوم.
that
Allah,
at
if you could wrap
8
up in a
a.m.
minute or so, I'd appreciate it because we have time
I
limits.
want to
وبالفعل
wake up
تاني يوم
on your call
بن-غوريون
telling me
صحى
that you have
ايزنهاور
withdrew from
من
Gaza.
النوم وحكى له تم
Yes, and
الانسحاب
this
من
is what
غزة.
happened.
هذا هو
They
التأثير
withdrew from
الأمريكي
Gaza.
عندما
This is
تكون في
how
إرادة
the
أمريكية
US
للضغط
can
على
act
إسرائيل.
and
تاريخ
have a real
أمريكا
effect.
في بعض المواقف اتجاه الشعب الفلسطيني كان مواقف مؤثرة، ولكن للأسف
We
في
know
الفترة الأخيرة وتحديدا فيما نعيشه
citizens of
في انحياز
America,
واضح
they have
للإدارة
always
الأمريكية
stood with
اتجاه
us, but unfortunately, recently we see
الاحتلال
the US
الإسرائيلي. ولكن احنا
administration
كلنا أمل
is
في
completely
النقابات
biased
الأمريكية،
and
بالشعب
standing with
الأمريكي
the
اللي احنا زي
Israelis,
ما
but
بنعرفه
we
زي ما احنا
trust
قرأنا
the
وتعلمنا
US citizens
وشفنا
and
من
the unionists.
من الديمقراطية من الشعب الأمريكي
We
والحرية
saw
والإنسانية.
their
فبنتمنى
democracy,
إنه
their
نشوف هذا على
humanity,
أرض
and we
الواقع
hope
اتجاه
that
قضية
this
الشعب
would
الفلسطيني،
be
اتجاه عمال
translated
فلسطين.
into a
نتمنى كمان يكون
position
في لقاءات
in
أوسع من
our
هيك، اللي كمان
support and to
نتعرف على
advocate
الناس
for
اللي
us
موجودة،
and to
النقابات العمالية والنقابيين.
get to know
وحكيت لكم كمان
US
بتمنى يكون في ضغط
unionists,
على
and I
الإدارة
hope
الأمريكية.
you
وحصل
can
هذا كمان
really
إحنا
have
عبر
some
هذا
leverage on
اللقاء
the
بدنا
US
نقدم الشكر
administration.
لاتحاد
And
عمال
with that,
أمريكا اللي
we
كان له
thank
موقف
you
واضح تجاه عمال
who
فلسطين،
for your
صوت
clear position,
لصالح
and
القرار
you have
الفلسطيني،
voted
ضغط على الإدارة الأمريكية باتجاه تعويض عمال الفلسطينيين اللي
for
بيعملوا بالداخل. ولكن للأسف
compensating
إسرائيل
the
بدون تحديد
Palestinian
بدون
workers
تهديد
in
زي
the
ما
West Bank,
هدد
but
ايزنهاور قبل
unfortunately
66 عام،
without
إن لم يتم
a real
تهديدها
effective
بالشكل اللي هدد فيه ايزنهاور في
language, a
حينه.
strong language,
ما
and
فيش
a real
هناك
threat
رادع
to the
لإسرائيل.
Israelis, they would not
إسرائيل
really
بتعتبر
respond.
حالها فوق كل القرارات الدولية،
Israel considers
بتعتبر حالها
itself
فوق كل شيء قانون
immune,
في العالم.
and
ولكن احنا الشعب الفلسطيني نحترم القانون، نحترم
but
شعوب
we
العالم،
are the
نحترم كل قضايا
Palestinians. We
العالم.
respect
احنا مش
law.
طالبين إشي،
We
طالبين
respect
نعيش بكرامة،
all
يكون في
peoples. We
عدالة،
only call for
يكون في
justice, to
إنسانية
live in dignity,
والسلام، مش
humanity,
أكتر من هيك.
and
احنا شعب
peace.
أكتر
Nothing
شعب بحب
more,
السلام،
nothing less.
لأنه احنا شعب بنفتقد
We
للسلام.
are
وشكرا للجميع،
peace-loving.
وكمان مرة بشكركم على هذا اللقاء.
And with that, I thank you all, and I thank you for this webinar.
And thank you so much, brother, for sharing those perspectives, in particular on the impact of this war on the working class of Palestine, both the West Bank and Gaza. Let me introduce the final guest for this panel, and then we'll get to a few other points of business, including a quick call to action. Rafif Ziuda heads up the Workers in Palestine And Rafif, we know you've been organizing with workers and unions around the world to amplify the voices of Palestinian workers and unions. And so tell us why it's so important to build union-to-union, worker-to-worker solidarity in this moment. And that solidarity also taking the form of ceasing military aid to the Israeli government and the war crimes that are following that aid.
Thank you, Brother Mark, for that very kind introduction, and to the network for hosting us. As you've heard, it's a very, very difficult time for Palestinians right now. So it's very important that we are getting together and having these conversations. Many thanks to the National Labor Network for a Ceasefire for hosting us today. I work with an organization called Workers in Palestine. I will be brief because a lot has been covered. I want to say that on October 16th, 2023, as the bombing intensified on Gaza, Palestinian unions issued a historic call, and it had a very simple demand to stop arming Israel. This is, of course, given the military and diplomatic support it was receiving from the United States and the European Union. We appealed to the world and to workers specifically to refrain from manufacturing, transporting, and handling goods and surveillance technology. Since then, every office of the Palestinian General Federation of Trade Unions in Gaza has been bombed. When we issued this call, we were asking our colleagues, our brothers and sisters in Gaza, to sign on to a statement and to draft a statement as they were hiding from bombs and trying to take care of families, trying to find their loved ones under the rubble. So I urge everyone to please go to the Workers in Palestine website and learn about that call. For us Palestinians, it truly has become difficult to find words anymore. But we know that it's on us to speak from within a genocide, to teach, to educate, to plan campaigns, and to reach out to our brothers and sisters in the trade union movement internationally. Today, Palestinian doctors, nurses, journalists, transport workers, fisherfolk are all holding communities together in Gaza. Many times when people speak about the war, they forget that workers in Palestine, like workers everywhere, step up to hold communities together. Palestinian workers have been at the front lines in Gaza, saving lives, rescuing communities among relentless bombardment, mostly by United States-made weapons. Our brothers and sisters in Gaza from the General Federation of Trade Unions, who we wished could be with us today, are mostly living in tents, having been uprooted now more than 8 times. And they keep shifting around, but they refuse to leave because they have jobs to do on the ground, and they keep doing them. So please keep them in your mind, please keep them in your hearts as we have these conversations. And this work is particularly important in the United States, of course, because the US continues to be Israel's main weapons supplier. The US provides regular weapons to Israel. Its current agreement from 2019 to 2028 is worth $3.8 billion. Since the start of Israel's current attack, the US government has approved the provision of an extra $14.5 billion in military aid as part of an aid package to Israel. We believe this money can be much better spent at home. It can be much better spent on workers, especially as the cost of living crisis intensifies. Why is all of this funding going to the Israeli state to continue its atrocities against the Palestinian people? We know that the giant manufacturing companies, military companies, are making a killing out of the destruction of Gaza. And as workers, we believe that an injury to one is an injury to all. So all we ask is that US workers also take responsibility and say, not in our name, not in our tax dollars, and not in the jobs that we have, should the destruction of Palestinian lives continue. Since we issued this call, we've had many unions around the world heed it and take action. Workers in the port of Barcelona have refused to transport weapons. Dock workers in Italy have refused to handle weapons. More and more dock workers unions are joining the call. As workers in Palestine, we are trade unionists, Palestinian, around the world. And the reason we came together was largely because the voices of Palestinian workers on the ground with the cuts to electricity weren't being heard internationally. And people were speaking about Palestine as if there are no workers. So we are here to amplify the work of Palestinian trade unions. We have produced guidance sheets for how you can organize in your trade union, model motions, and research on who arms Israel, who is manufacturing and where they are manufacturing. Please use all of this research so we can work together. We need a ceasefire, but now we have gone even beyond the demands for a ceasefire as Gaza has become completely destroyed, and the people there and the workers there are saying they do not want charity, because solidarity is not charity. It's about stepping up and saying not in our name. It's about speaking at this time around the importance of the ceasefire, but also the importance of what life will be like in Gaza later. Palestinian workers want to rebuild Gaza, and they have done it over and over. Palestinians in the West Bank, Palestinians all over the world have been saying for decades now, we are not subhuman. We deserve to live in dignity and freedom just as everyone else. Our demands are very clear. We want trade unions around the world to truly go back to the spirit of internationalism that ended apartheid in South Africa, to help and stand with Palestinian workers until Palestine is free. Thank you all for being here, and thanks very much for all the organizing.
Sister, thank you so much for those excellent comments. And I think that everyone on this webinar would second the motion and the emotion, not in our name, not in our name. So now, before we get to a couple questions from the participants, as union people, we take action. And we have a small action we're going to call on everybody to engage in. We have a letter writing campaign prepared online to write to our members of Congress, urging them to take immediate and long overdue action to secure a ceasefire in Gaza and to end the slaughter of Palestinians. So the link to the, right now, if you can go to the chat, there's a link there that you can link and get to the online letter writing campaign. And then, while it might be a little difficult, if you can't get to the link, you can go to, if you can follow me here, bit.ly.com, and then /take-action-for-Gaza-peace. So that's kind of tough. It's a lot easier if you can do it right off the chat box on your Zoom screen. But again, if you can't, bit.ly.com/take-action-for-Gaza-peace. So we'll take a minute or two to do that. And as you're working on that, in a minute, we'll get to a couple questions and then we'll wrap up. And just to make it clear, in case I didn't say it right, bit.ly, you can see it up there, /take-action-for-Gaza-peace. While we're working on this call to action, let me go to a question or two and ask our panelists to weigh in. Our first question we received many like it, is from Enid Eckstein, an 1199 SEIU member, who asks, what can supporters in the U.S. do to be most helpful to the union movement in Palestine? And I think that some of that was already touched on in the comments. But if any of the three of you who are on, Rafif, Sharouk would like to share a little more on that. Jump in.
Yeah, I'll start, Rafis, dear. It's well, there's a lot to be done, but mainly, in my opinion, to address all the workers or the companies that are part of the workers' community in general. If they give aid to Israel that goes to the army with money, with weapons, with so many other things, I think there should be pressure on them, because maybe this is the only way we can really stop the killing of children and women and all the workers inside Gaza, and what will come also in West Bank. I think doing pressure, real pressure, and to make them be questioned why they are doing this, and if they do this, they are partners in genocide. I think this is one of the main things to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to echo what Sharouk is saying, I think it's high time we do a lot of education in the labor movement around the arms trade with Israel, around how the US is supporting Israel. Many people don't know the effects of this arm trade on the ground and what is happening in Palestine, and the various ways that the military support, but also the diplomatic support, actually ensures that there is no justice and no peace in the long term for Palestinians. So there is so much education, and within workers in Palestine, we really believe in rank and file education. We want members of the unions to understand what workers in Palestine are going through, that it's not just some faraway conflict that doesn't affect them, that in so many ways their tax dollars are being spent over there, and nobody wants to see hospitals being bombed, schools being bombed, an entire society being destroyed live on our television screens. And I think there's a lot of ways to do this rank and file education. Webinars like this are a very important first step. People hearing from trade unionists in Palestine and from Palestinians themselves about the real conditions of life. I used to organize with the Canadian Union of Public Employees, and when Palestinian teachers or nurses would speak about the conditions they face, people couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe that as an ambulance driver, you would be facing bullets just in order to pick up somebody and try to take them to a hospital. It's an abnormal situation. And I think when we speak to people about it truthfully, they begin to understand the conditions and really have solidarity with Palestinians, again, as workers, not some faraway war.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know, is Allah still on or not, but if you'd like to jump in, otherwise we'll go to the next question. Okay, so we have a second question. It's a very broad question, but an important one. And this comes from Alice Freund, a member of the New Jersey Education Association. And she asked, what does your union believe is the long-lasting solution to the conflict with Israel? And adding to the question, what would the goals of the Palestinian labor movement be once you've secured a lasting peace? That's a big question, but if you want to take a piece of it, we'd certainly appreciate your thoughts.
I must say that I get asked this question a lot about solutions, and it's really quite difficult right now with the conditions the way they are, both in the West Bank and Gaza. I think because all eyes are on Gaza, people forget that things have gotten also much worse in the West Bank. The illegal settler harassment, the harassment at checkpoints, what Alaa referred to before as the cantons that have been created that Palestinians cannot pass through. The situation on the ground is truly devastating. And rather than grand final solutions to propose, I would say we have to begin with people, how they are living, and questions of justice. It cannot be that the lives of Palestinians are ruled over by 18-year-old boys in the Israeli military who get to dictate every aspect of our lives day in and day out. So the first step has to always be ending the military occupation, which again continues to be supported by the United States as its official sponsor. So we have to start from this lived reality of Palestinians on the ground and speak about ending the occupation, ending the system that inflicts this segregation on Palestinians that are living in a land where their lives are completely controlled by a foreign military. I do hope that in a future, we can all live in peace on that piece of land. For that to happen, there needs to be restitution and justice for Palestinian refugees. I'm a Palestinian refugee. My family was thrown out of our homes. So without talking about these issues of the right of return of Palestinian refugees, restitution, water, ending the military occupation, and justice for all Palestinians, then any talk of a solution would be fake. Solutions are built on justice. As workers know, when we go out on a picket line, we demand justice for workers, and this situation is no different.
Thank you so much, Rafeef. Anyone else want to weigh in? Okay, so let me, before I share a few closing thoughts on behalf of the network, let me just remind everyone that if you haven't gone into the chat and taken the action to please do so, and to share with your brothers and sisters and union families and comrades to do the same. And also, if you want to learn more and join with us with more work with the National Labor Network for Ceasefire, you can go to our website, laborforceasefire.org. So in closing, let me give a deep and huge appreciation on behalf of the National Labor Network to the panelists that joined us today under very difficult circumstances. We heard even a little bit just through the presentations of how hard life has been, continues to be, and is worsening under this onslaught. And whether it's the checkpoint story that Sister Sharuk shared, or the brother from the healthcare workers in Gaza who doesn't even have communications or the ability to have joined us on this Zoom, or the workers that Alad talked about, they can't even earn a living. That's the basic part of being a worker. We go out and work and we earn a living and we sustain ourselves and our families and our communities. But I really want to thank and deeply appreciate all of the panelists who got on to share their courageous stories. And we've all heard that despite the horrors of this war, our Palestinian sisters and brothers and union family have not given up hope. Their struggle to have their lives, their history, their culture respected, to live in dignity and freedom with security for their families and the hope for a brighter future is the same spirit that ignites the struggles of working people around the world. As workers in the United States, as trade unionists in the United States, we have the challenge and the tremendous obligation to keep organizing and keep building solidarity between our unions and the workers in Palestine. For it is our government, and Rafeef pointed this out very clearly, it is our government that uses our tax dollars to fund the war crimes you've heard about today. And it's our government that actually could stop the bloodshed, could answer the cries of humanity, and stop the funding of this war. I hope this meeting, and I think it should, propel all of us who believe in international worker solidarity who believe in peace and justice, who believe in standing with all humanity, that it propels us to ever more urgent action. Let's keep organizing. Let's build power in our workplaces. Let's keep building a movement to end this war. And then also let's lock arms as working people around the globe to win the world we all want to see and live in, where every worker and their families can live in peace, work with dignity, return to their families, and grow our communities with justice and solidarity. Thanks for joining us. Thanks again, a wonderful, heartfelt thanks to the courage of the panelists that joined us. Solidarity forever. Let's stay in touch and move forward with dispatch, with urgency, and with solidarity. Thank you all.
Very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everybody.